Hey, welcome back to Agatha All Along on Moonbath Chats. We're gonna get into spoilers right away for episode 3, Through Many Miles of Tricks and Trials. Another lyric from the Ballad of the Witch's Road. I think that's how it goes. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Here it is, the Witch's Road. So we start off pretty much where exactly we left off last time. It seems that each episode's gonna be about a specific trial that they're gonna have to partake in and pass. And very, very episodic structure, and I think it works well. I think they're doing a good job. It's just that at the beginning of this episode, I was a bit concerned it'll be drawn out a little bit too much. Feels like also this episode feels a little bit less campy, less exaggerated than the first couple episodes. Almost like it's kind of like trying to like slow down and I guess just become a little bit more palatable to regular viewers. It's like losing its identity a little bit. But this is a good moment of different characterizations, for each character, pretty much how they deal with this. Mostly Sharon versus Agatha here. Sharon's like, we should be polite and ring the doorbell and not just barge in, while Agatha's like, why not? Let's just go in there. First off, sometimes it's not easy to notice the aspect ratio changes here, and this happened. Aspect ratio change happened on WandaVision, when it's a transition from different sitcoms and different eras. But so far in Agatha, it's always had this more cinematic aspect ratio so far, right? Until they go into the house where it cuts to a more TV standard, closer to 16:9 aspect ratio. I think to mimic more of like reality TV or more just like casual daytime TV even. And then they also have completely new outfits and looks. Very waspy, rich housewife look, right? Is what they're all getting. Each episode may be dealing with, different aesthetics as they go through different trials, maybe inspired by different TV genres. It seems similar to what WandaVision was doing, but this time they're aware that they're like entering these new realities based on different looks and styles. And it's just fun to watch like all these different characters we are now pretty familiar with, deal with these tests that they have to go through. And each trial seems to be catered to a specific witch. This time it's going to be the potion witch. Jennifer Kale here is going to take the lead. My age has value. I'm no fun alone. I mess with your mind. My tricks are well known. And I did wish they like lingered on that a little longer, because I wanted to figure that out by myself. But it was pretty quick when Sharon came up with with the answer, only because she saw some wine over here. She's back to being her funny cute self again. So they assume they have to drink the wine, right? Like it appeared there. They're all wanting the big prize. We gotta go for it. But Jennifer Kale here is trying to warn the teen about Agatha. Like you can't be trusting her so much. And she reveals a pretty big bombshell here. She mentions that people were saying Agatha traded her child for the Darkhold. I guess the Darkhold is the same thing as the Book of the Damned. And then, of course, the teen doesn't believe it because he's a big fan of Agatha, even though he says, like, I know how people feel about her. So it's still not clear exactly what he knows Agatha has done. He at least knows that people don't like her. He probably thinks people are jealous of her. Haters are going to hate. Either way, her son was never seen again at some point. And so people don't know what happened. And that, maybe the son is a demon or an agent of Mephisto. This is the first reference to Mephisto in the show, and I think is it the first reference in the MCU? People were speculating back during WandaVision that Mephisto was behind it all, because in the comics he was a big villain in the comics for Scarlet Witch, and Wanda's kids were like a shard of his soul or something. I don't know. The creator Jack Schaefer, she is aware of all those theories, and so this seems to me like just like a little bit of a wink towards the fan base who are theorizing about this stuff. I don't know, it could be a red herring. This whole sequence, this whole little scene here too, is kind of a red herring too, because she says, I doubt she'd even recognize her own son if he showed up at her doorstep. That's pretty much connecting the teen to her son, you know, because this teen showed up at her doorstep. There's that sigil in his mouth. Oh yeah, I think earlier on we saw that everyone saw the sigil. You know, at this point they're like, okay, wait, who actually is this guy, this teen? Even to them, his identity is hidden. And before, you know, I suspected, oh, it's only affecting Agatha. So I imagine it only affects the witches in the coven, because maybe the spell and the enchantment is all about, like, he can't reveal his name to anybody that can potentially tell Agatha. You know, this scene is supposed to make us question, like, oh, maybe it could be Agatha's son, and that could be a cool character development. Her confronting that is going to be a big scene, right? And, you know, later on we even see that she seems to be becoming attached to the teen too. And it's a bit funny too, because this whole moment, you know, everybody's meant to drink the wine. For a second I was like, why isn't the teen drinking? And I forgot, oh yeah, he's a teen. He's 16, he can't drink. And Agatha is like, yeah, sure, whatever. Because at first she isn't as concerned with the teen, or in a way, like, or anybody else but herself. So it was like the first test, you know, is she gonna give wine to the teen? Even though, like, you know, I guess a full glass of wine is probably not good. But I think it's like, what, it's like 18 and in different countries where you can drink. And of course, you know, as long as you're drinking the blood of Christ, you can drink wine. Anyway, so the timer starts, it says like 28 minutes, and that's just about how long is left in the episode too. It's not exact. That builds the suspense. Cool little story device. And now it's time to get to know some of these witches even more. Like, we didn't get to know too much about Alice really. Now she's like opening up a little bit more to teen. You know, she's got this tattoo that apparently her mother made her get when she was 13. You know, all the women in the family were cursed, apparently, is what Alice's mother said. I'm sure some internet sleuths could go and maybe figure out if this is referencing anything, a particular. A lot happened to me at 13 too. Okay, so he's saying that, like, he's gone through some shit, some family issues, not so great upbringing, you know, and particularly at 13, you know, during puberty, like mutants, like, I don't know, maybe it could be a mutant thing. Certain things happen to these characters, these traumatic events, you know, a type of origin story for them. But he doesn't go into details, you know, so that's another little bit of foreshadowing of what's to come about his character. We do see that Agatha is up to her tricks. She's dumping out the wine. She doesn't want to get poisoned, you know. She feels like, okay, let's have everyone else test it out. But the magic house knows what's up, knows that she's doing that. The glass fills back up. There's a fun scene, you know. Sharon's like, okay, so witches are just another name for bad girls. Lilia here is like, oh, let's just don't lump us all into one category, one label. You know, witches are a variety of things. There's a lot of pagan witches out there that are, you know, it's more, they see it more as like a religion to them, you know, more of a spiritual path, not so Halloween demons and devils type of thing. We get into the major problem of the episode is they get swollen. They discover that the wine is poisoned. Again, this is perhaps a reference to, you know, Reality Housewives, reminiscent of maybe too much Botox. You know, in this episode is also a lot about the anxiety and then the fears that all these characters have, right? The typical fear is the fear of aging, but it goes away quickly, right? You know, and so they figure out, okay, this is actually just one step. They're going to lose their minds a bit. They're going to hallucinate. They're going to go through different symptoms. And, you know, Agatha being herself is like, oh, well, let's get out of here. She didn't really drink the poison. That's the thing. So she just wants to let them be poisoned and her to move on, you know. But this is a freaking trial. They have to get through this together because they can't walk the witch's road alone, right? So she has to take part. And so she does. And now she's like out of sync with the rest of them, you know. So her symptoms are going to show up a little later, while Sharon is the canary in the coal mine. She as the first one to drink all the wine, she's gonna be the first to experience these awful things. And now Agatha's is swollen. It's fun imagery too, you know. It's a bit of like a body horror imagery that is more specific to women, you know, about aging and beauty standards, you know. So it's the type of thing that you wouldn't really see in the male-centric Marvel shows, right? You know, and of course also witches in general have been known to siphon the youthfulness of other characters to stay young forever, right? That's part of their myth. This is the trial for the potion witch to figure out. And so they look up for the ingredients. Agatha figures that Jennifer Kale is lying about the fact that her skincare products don't have any petroleum. Supposedly they're all organic, but nope. You know, she's lying about that. Now they're seeing stuff, and now it becomes a little bit more like a horror movie, right? I feel like all these scenes here are actually more horror than even the second episode. Then, you know, the moment we saw the Salem 7, right, that was like some horror moments, but that was I felt a little bit more exaggerated and not as serious. They've changed tone a little bit with these horror sequences here. This actually feels more like out of a horror film. They're starting the trial, so things are becoming a little more serious. And beforehand, when we were getting the team together, it was more about just discovering the personalities of everybody. The games really begin now. Jennifer Kale sees what looks like to be a doctor figure, right? I'm wondering who this could be. It kind of, I feel like I get the vibes that this is like a doctor professor who, like, maybe she went to medical school or some witch potion academy, and maybe she was like a healer and made potions to heal people, and he was like an abusive professor or something, or she worked with as a doctor maybe, who tortured her, it seems. You know, he calls her an inconvenient woman. You know, that's a very charged misogynist thing to say, right? And so that's definitely an anxiety, a bad memory that really forms her identity from her past back to haunt her, you know. And like all these characters are dealing with now. Alice's vision here is a little bit more clear. She has these anxieties regarding her mother and how her mother had mental illness issues, probably had, you know, some witchy clairvoyance as well, right? Depression issues here, suicidal. She says she can feel the death of her mother, you know, which is Alice's grandmother, and she feels like it's her turn now. So like some entity is coming out to get them. We're probably going to see that entity confront Alice too, you know. And to what extent is her mother seeing some truth, some reality, versus just some demons in her head that aren't really there? So is this like a nun character? And that's definitely representative of death, right? You know, there was moments where she probably foretold that a certain somebody was going to die, you know, and this is one of those visions she had, you know, and now she says she's fearing that death is coming for her. And this is actually a really good performance from Alice's mother here. I really like, you know, again, this is more of a grounded, realistic performance compared to maybe what we seen in other episodes that are more campy and dramatic, more over the top. I think it works for this episode, this tonal shift. It definitely makes it scarier. And then suddenly it all stops. Now they see that they're being submerged underwater. The whole house is becoming a fish tank. And there are the fishes. Thanks to Agatha. And in her rage, that window is cracked and it's leaking. So they gotta hurry up and they gotta finish up this potion. You know, Agatha's symptoms are delayed. She starts to hallucinate, and she hears a baby, her child, her baby boy, Nicholas Scratch, right? And it's no baby, it's the Darkhold. It's indicating that she traded her son for Darkhold. But the thing is that, like, you know, we don't know if she did that intentionally. What if, like, it was a monkey's paw situation or something, right? She wished for the Darkhold, but in exchange, she had to let go of her child. And it wasn't like a thing that she intended, but it just so happened that was the cost. Or no, or maybe she is like, that's just her character. She's the evil bad girl witch, right? Maybe, she didn't want a kid anyways. Maybe she wasn't ready to have a child, and she was like, I'm not ready to have a child. I'll give it up, to it for adoption to this other entity, maybe, that will trade me for the Darkhold. Maybe she didn't think it was that bad of a trade. We don't know where Nicholas Scratch is at. Maybe Nicholas Scratch has a good life right now. Maybe maybe it wasn't a trade to Mephisto. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Either way, she's very much feeling things about doing that in her past. A lot of this anxiety and fear she's bearing in her mind, the recesses of her mind, much like everyone else, every other witch is bearing those nightmares too, right? Those past mistakes, perhaps, or traumatic experiences. And we're only getting a tease in this episode. We're gonna get more info later on, I imagine. And so they're missing an ingredient. It didn't turn blue, it's still green. And Agatha gives her a pep talk, like, hey, you can do this. And that sparks the idea, right, we need the blood of the unpoisoned, which of course is the teen's blood. He didn't drink because he's a teen. Agatha almost screwed that up earlier, right? Almost giving him some wine. Because it's a Disney show. You can't show teen drinking alcohol. That's a no. And so they do that. They put the blood in there. Oh yeah, before that, right? About the alcohol, right? If we go back, he really wants this trial to go good, right? He went through all this trouble to get Agatha out of a spellbound delusion of being stuck by Wanda. He's not gonna let this Agatha, this witch he's looked up to, ruin it all at this moment, right? Hey, you gotta drink. And he's like, well, if you're not gonna do it, then I'll do it. This is the first time, it seems, that Agatha is actually protecting the teen. But now that she's seen that, these women are getting these swollen faces, and they're going through all these, and they're obviously been poisoned, all of a sudden she's becoming more of a protective figure. She's feeling attached to him more like a son, right? It fits well with the whole story of her going through this trauma of losing her kid, and then also tying her back to Wanda, who's also dealing with that. And I like this characterization because it's a good little mystery box. Whether or not he's in fact her child or not, or it's Wanda's son. And then she's gonna have to face the fact that, like, which I think would be more interesting, she's come to care for this teen as her own son through these trials and tribulations, and then finding out that he's in fact the son of Wanda, the witch she hates the most, the person she probably hates the most in the world for putting her under that spell and taking her power. She's gonna have these mixed emotions, of feeling attached to the teen, but also hating his origins, hating his mother. So, and then if the teen finds out, that she's the one that was trying to take Wanda's powers and was basically her villain, and the teen realizes that was her mom, Wanda, that was his mom. Well, that's gonna be a major scene, a major contentious scene coming up, right? In the climax, I imagine, of the series, probably the penultimate episode, we'll find out the answer, if not the last episode of the season. So that's what we're building up to. And I think it's doing a good job so far of getting to that point. Yeah, so she goes in there to get the blood of the teen by cutting his hand. Anyway, so they drink the potion and everything seems like it's gonna work out, but then they forgot, oh yeah, Sharon needs to drink it. At the very last second, they give Sharon the potion. It seems like it worked out. If they didn't pass it, that oven wouldn't have opened, right? And they would have been stuck in that house and drowned. And of course, this is a reference to the myths of witches being cooked in ovens, but also witches putting people and kids in ovens to eat them, like in Hansel and Gretel, right? That old fairy tale, which Lilia here references. In fact, she's like, that happened to a friend of mine. She had a lovely house. The lovely house, of course, made a candy for Hansel and Gretel. So, that's their only way out. They got to go in there. At first, Agatha doesn't want to save Sharon. Her boy, the teen, is like, we gots to. And they go and slippily slide, and now it's a water park. And Agatha goes in before Alice. She's a mean witch, and she's gonna push people aside to get out of there alive. And now we transition back into a more cinematic aspect ratio, because we're back on the Witch's Road. Whenever we're in, I guess, the base reality, it's always going to be in the cinematic aspect ratio. In some realities, like in the detective show, they were also in the cinematic aspect ratio, but that was also like a prestige show, so it made sense for that show. So I guess it's going to depend too. I do wonder if there'll be like a 4:3 more square aspect ratio later on, like they did with WandaVision. If they end up going back in time, maybe. And Lilia's like, oh, we should stop bickering. We've survived. We can move on, Turns out Sharon is dead. Bum, bum, bum. Dramatic ending that's undercut by Agatha here, who's like, who's Sharon? And cuts to Heads Will Roll by the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, a really fun song. A fairy tale, Alice in Wonderland's type of vibe, right? It's referencing the Queen of Hearts, off with her head, but she's Mrs. Hart, right? One of her identities. Maybe she's not dead. Maybe like in the next episode, this is gonna happen. She's alive! I like the idea that the stakes are real on this Witch's Road, and that any of these characters could die. That makes it a lot more interesting, a lot more intense, right? Not more suspenseful. It may lessen the fun of having all these different characters together. And of course, Sharon was probably the least impactful of all the characters. She was pretty much kidnapped almost. So it's pretty tragic, and she's like is the most innocent of all the characters. What would be fun actually is if like people keep dying, but then when they reach the end, maybe they have to decide like, oh, like gain all this power or revive the friends you made along the way. That could be a touching ending. Like Agatha's like confronted with it, with the decision, get all the power you want or revive your coven. And that will be a good learning moment, a good redemption arc for Agatha, right? In the meantime, they're gonna have to find another Green Witch, right? How are they gonna get through the trial of the Green Witch if each trial requires a different witch? Probably next episode, they're gonna find Aubrey Plaza, and she's gonna take the place of Sharon. I imagine so. Now that Sharon has died, probably Alice, Lilia, or Jennifer Kale. Those three are up next, up to bat for the next death. Definitely the teen Agatha and Aubrey are going to survive to the end, I imagine. The very ending, I feel like, is effective ending. It's a fun little ending to an episode. A primary supporting character dies is a pretty good moment to end on, right? But then it's undercut by the comedy of Agatha still not remembering her name, because that's like a running gag. Part of her character is that she's selfish and is uncaring for most everybody else, right? So of course she doesn't remember Sharon's name. She's like looking in this direction. She doesn't really turn away. So obviously she can see on the ground, right, that the teen is referring to the woman who's dead right there. You can put two things together, Agatha, that he's talking about this woman here, Sharon. That's Sharon, obviously. And so it almost feels like it's a performance she's putting on. Like, who's Sharon? It doesn't feel like the joke is executed as well as it could have been. All they really had to do is have Agatha face the other way, and maybe even walking a bit forward, away from the group, again to signify that she's isolating herself from the group. She isn't really trying to integrate herself as well as the others. And then even like maybe at that point turn her face and look at them. It's like, who's Sharon? Maybe it's a nitpicky thing, but I think that would have worked better. It's still a fun little ending.
Who's Sharon?
All right, so that's the end of that episode. The opening of the episode, I was a little bit concerned about the pacing, but by the time they got to the house and they had to go through that trial, it picked up, and it was really fun and good. We got some clues, some hints to potential revelations regarding the teen and his identity. Could he be connected to Agatha? We got some call outs to Mephisto. I'm having a good time still. We're starting to understand now the structure of the season. Like this is, each episode's going to be a new trial. It's still a great cast, and not everyone's dead yet. Of course, we could be getting into more of a slump in the middle of the season soon here, where things might be more drawn out and more filler. But so far, so good. That's Agatha All Along, episode 3. And I'm gonna, I guess, just wait here under the moonlight until the next episode. Yep. See ya then. Later.